This is so good. Got a vegan chicken sandwich. Actually, so good. My sibling made it for me. It's like difficult to get it because it's like a really big sandwich, so I have to like eat part of the bottom half, and then I can eat the top half. Yeah, but it's so good. There's vegan mayo at the bottom, some barbecue and satay sauce at the top. There's a vegan egg at the top, some avocado, slice of vegan cheese, and it's like the best vegan cheese slices I've ever had, melted on top of the vegan chicken patty. Yeah, it's really good. Mm. Oh yeah, and sourdough bread, so good. Mm. Ah. And the weather is so good today. We're gonna go out to a park and just kind of enjoy the nice weather. Yeah, and if any of you watch this video for some reason of me just literally eating a sandwich, and you're like, dang, I missed so much's live stream, don't worry. You did not miss it. I'm recording this unlisted or private. I thought about just going live, but I have to do my plans today. I've got a personal reading to do, and I know if I went live that I'd probably hang out with you guys for a really long time. So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make a video of me eating a sandwich. That sounds like the right thing to do. The sandwich is so good though. And the vegan mayo with the barbecue sauce on top. The avocado is really nice. The bread is definitely like cutting up my like gums because bread is so like hard and crunchy, you know. But like right now, I'm like, it's so worth it. Alright, here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes the end of a sandwich, you know, it all starts to really fall apart. Sometimes at the start of eating a sandwich, it starts to fall apart. And that's really challenging too, but so far, so good. Also, if we were hanging out and I went live, I probably wouldn't finish the sandwich because I would keep talking to you all. So good. Yeah, if any of you haven't tried like vegan chicken patties or like vegan egg or vegan cheese, like obviously brand does matter. There's some out there where you're like, this is not it. But there's some where this is it. And that's this whole sandwich. It's so good. Oh my gosh. And now like these vegan options are becoming a lot more accessible, at least over here. And I know they're definitely more accessible in certain other places around the world as well. There's actually a good number of places throughout Asia and Europe. Yeah, that have like a lot of vegan options. So hopefully it becomes accessible everywhere because yeah, there's definitely a crowd of people, a community that want to go vegan, and the more accessible it is, the easier it is for people to do that. Over here for years, it was mostly like, and it's only more like recently that it's become accessible. But where it was mostly accessible was like, I guess what you could say, the high-end grocery stores, which the fact that food is a part of capitalism for some reason is atrocious. But anyways, the high-end grocery stores would have the vegan options. But if you went to like Winco, Safeway, Fred Meyer's, Albertsons, these places would have like no options. But over the last maybe 4 years, 6 years, they've been adding some like vegan options to those grocery stores, to Winco and Safeway and things like that. And they've been adding on it more because obviously it sells. So it's from a money approach, but like still, it's very nice that it's becoming accessible to these grocery stores that like quote unquote everybody here goes to, because not everybody goes to places like New Seasons and Whole Foods, whether because they can't or it's too expensive, which that's very very valid, but also like sometimes just like at least incorporate some of it, because like the produce is a lot more fresh almost all of the time. It's like so obvious. Like when I try and get like fruits and veggies at like Safeway versus like going to New Seasons or something, there's sometimes a very obvious difference. And I'm just like, why? And obviously the price is higher and stuff, but like, you know, if you're trying to take care of yourself, sometimes you just kind of like have to. But that's just me. Um, but yeah, it's really nice that more vegan options are showing up at the places where people go to more commonly, I guess you could say, or more, I don't know, because whether it's because they're just used to it or because it's cheaper. Like like obviously one of the reasons why people would choose Winco, Safeway, etc. over New Seasons Whole Food is because it's cheaper, like financial reasons. But in the area that I live in, there are a lot of people who are financially doing great, you could say, or whatever, and yet they like do not go to New Seasons and Whole Foods. They still stick to these places. So there's definitely a lot of familiarity and things like that for why some people go. So it's nice that the vegan options are showing up in those places, because then it makes people think, gives them a reason to consider trying something new and realizing like, whoa, this is delicious. And it's like, I don't know, if you just like weigh out the options, like if you could eat exactly what you're eating but vegan versions of it, well, like why wouldn't you? You know. So those are some of my thoughts while I'm eating this sandwich. I think going more plant-based, or at least wanting to or trying to, is a revolution. I'm not saying it's possible for everyone in this now moment, but that uh, like ethically speaking, morally speaking, which I get that those are like subjective, but also let's be real, there are some pretty clear, obvious answers between right and wrong a lot of the times in life. Like hurting others generally should be considered wrong. So like it shouldn't be like, you know, people are like, you've got your opinions, I've got mine. Sure, you believe in peace, I believe in murder. It's like, okay, just because you say that you've got your opinions, I've got mine, and that therefore neither of us are wrong or right, like that's not how those work. Like there is a kind of clear line between like, I don't know, light energy and shadow energy, and yes, it's a duality system. They're one of the same entity or two sides of the same coin. But yeah, like some conscientious living could do people some good, you know? Um, but yeah, I'm also not trying to hate on anyone who isn't vegan or vegetarian or plant-based, because I just think it's a lot harder than that. Like we were all conditioned and raised into meat eating and it being normalized, and many of you might have memories as a child asking people about it, and maybe you've gotten responses when you were a little kid about meat like, oh no, it's just fake meat. Like they'll lie to you to get you to keep eating meat, or they'll be like, oh, fish aren't meat, just chicken and cows or whatever, but not fish. Like that was another thing I was told, that fish are not meat but everything else is. So if I want to be like vegetarian, I could just eat fish, which people call pescatarian. But anyways, we were told all sorts of things. For those of you who as a child, if you did question what you were eating, you might have been given answers to get it normalized, like it's totally okay. Like they don't most children, like, they don't show you like a butcher shop or whatever and show you the process of a living being and what they do to it, and that they give it presented to you to consume it. Like, if children saw that, that would be traumatizing, and a lot of children would kind of just be like, what is this nightmare that people call Earth? Like, whoa, this is not good. You know, a lot of children would probably, just for their own reasoning, not want to participate in all of this, however, be forced into it, because children, just like all human beings and all living beings, get hungry and need to eat to sustain themselves. So it's like, one way or another, we kind of get forced into it. So anyways, for those reasons, and for more reasons, like, I don't like hate on anyone who isn't vegan or plant-based or vegetarian. Also, location, there are people who are in areas where they don't have these options, so literally for your survival, by all means, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, if it's possible for you as an individual to make these transitions and stuff, or to like incorporate more fruits and veggies into your diet and things like that, it's a good idea to try. Finding places where you can find vegan options to things that do the exact same thing is a great way to start. So, yeah, like years back when I thought about like going vegetarian, vegan, to me that said like I have to give up all my favorite foods. And that's what made it really hard for me to want to do that, or to be able, I wanted to, but to physically be able to do that and to not have cravings for all my favorite foods, I was like, this is impossible. And I would try, and then like for about a month I would go, and it would be really difficult, and I would feel like I'm starving most of the time. And if I didn't feel like I was actually physically starving, I was craving and trying not to crave and trying not to eat certain things that I really enjoyed eating. Like the McChicken and McDouble from McDonald's. I loved combining them together and putting on mac sauce. So good. But like at that time, that's how I saw it. I saw it as like if I had to switch and go vegan right now, like if I want to, that I just need to do it now. Make the switch all of a sudden and suddenly not know what to eat and eat salads and like, or whatever, things that don't have animal produce in them, you know? And in the society, that's almost everything. Even things that it makes no sense. I saw this recipe the other day for like this like artichoke dip or whatever. I don't even remember what the dip was, and I was like, "Cool." I was listening, and halfway through, they're like, "Yeah, throw in your shrimp paste and all these things." I was like, "But why?" I was like, "Okay, but why?" Like there's certain recipes where I'm like, it doesn't even make sense. They just had to throw it in there, and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, I'm not watching this recipe video anymore. Like, there's obviously a way to make that same recipe without, so there's some recipes where it was just like really baffling to me. So that's the other thing. Even in foods that by like logically, like for example, let's say oatmeal. You want to eat oatmeal, but actually, hey, it turns out they use chicken broth for some reason at a restaurant that you ordered oatmeal. There's no real restaurant that has oatmeal, and I think for the most part, anywhere you get oatmeal, it's probably not gonna have animal produce. But with how ridiculous that sounds, right? There are so many foods and things that it makes no sense that there would be animal produce, and they don't tell you at places and restaurants and things, but they'll throw it in there anyways. Why? The veggie soup, they'll use chicken broth. Why though? We ordered a veggie soup. Like if you ask them the question, sometimes they'll answer and let you know, oh, it is with the same broth. And it's like, okay, you can't just serve that as vegetarian or vegan. Like that doesn't make sense. Um, but anyways, we do live in a world that makes it feel like there's no other options. But obviously, enough people who really wanted these options got into the business world and started marketing on it, and now that it's profiting and now that it's like a real market, suddenly these grocery stores like Winco, Safeway, and so forth, suddenly they want to sell these vegan options, and they'll sell them side by side with all the meat options. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, how do you not understand the issue there? And like how people who are plant-based and vegan don't want to go buy their vegan foods right next to the same aisle as that, you know? There's this clothing brand that I found on Instagram that I love, and it's called Don't Eat the Homies. And there's a video of like people reacting to someone wearing that sweatshirt out at Walmart, and the amount of dirty like looks or judgmental looks that this person got, it was like, it made sense, but it was ridiculous. And some people tried defending those judgmental people. They're like, they're just reading Lamau. It's like, yeah, I could tell some of them in the video. I'm like, yeah, it does look like they're reading, but like, there's this lady who like while turning, like gave this like look while turning and looking right at the person. Like they weren't. The people were angry. Some people, yeah, sure, they were reading, and then they were angry while and after reading. Also, like, wow, like that's just rude too to like just stare at some like. Even if I want to read other people's like shirts and things in public, I try not to read at, like while looking right at them because like awkward. Or if it's something that I want to read, I'll read and kind of like nod my head or something. Like there's a way you can read and not look like. And I'm trying not to cuss here because I'm like considering like if children ever like find my content on YouTube, I'm trying to cuss less because I don't want to. But I can't think of another word, but like there's a way you can read someone's shirt in public and not look like a total asshole. Like, you know, like but anyways, the clothing brand is called Don't Eat the Homies, and that's what the slogan says on all their clothing lines. It just says like Don't Eat the Homies, and it might have some like cute little like silhouettes of different animals and things like that. And like the amount of looks that people have like a problem with it. But it's like people need to realize that's what we're doing. Like I'm not trying to make people feel bad for eating. Like, I've had even some dreams where because I was at a dinner party and there was only meat-based options, that I'm like, okay, and I would eat knowing it was meat, but I was hungry. And these were dreams I was having like even like a few months ago. I mean, these don't happen often, but like sometimes I'll have like that type of a dream where I'm like, whoa, I had a dream where I was suddenly eating meat, you know? Like, so I'm not like confused as to why and how people do it. I was also born into it and things like that. But like, yeah, I just think it's important to be aware. Like, I'm not trying to make people feel bad, but it's like literally, this is one of the most dark subjects that you could find. Like, I don't know. They're animals. They're living beings. Like what we are doing, and they're not living quality lives or anything. It's like none of the process makes sense. It's like people will try to like, oh, well, at farms where it's like organic and like all this stuff, they're treated really well. It's like no, they're not. Like if you're raising something out of love, but it's out of love to then eat them. I don't know. That sounds like a nightmare movie. Like it is a nightmare movie. Like to me, it just kind of makes sense. I just like think about if the roles were reversed and we did not develop speech, but we definitely had feelings and like physical and emotional feelings, and that we also had offspring, like cows, for example. Literally, name any animal can have offspring, can have children, and most of these animals love their babies. Like that's clearly emotional intelligence, and it's like all of that, and it's like what's happening to them is atrocious. And it's not like, oh, we can have both vegan options and non-vegan options so everyone's happy. It's like, no, it needs to come to an end. It needs to stop. Like on this planet, like atrocious crimes that are legal need to come to an end. So I believe there's a possible future someday where mass murdering animals is actually illegal. And at this point in time, like, why? And they're like, people gotta eat. It's like you do realize if we lived in a world that would do such a thing and say that that's atrocious and make it illegal, such a world would provide for you necessary nutrients that don't come from mass murder that would fill you up and give you all your favorite meals still, minus the cruelty, you know? So it's like, in a world where these things do come to a stop, that same world would provide for you and you would be okay. Like all the people. And people are like, oh, well, my body's on it. So it's like, that'll ruin my health. It's like, no. Staying in a cycle can make you feel comfortable, but it just numbs you so that it gets progressively worse over the decades. Actually, the sooner you break those cycles, yes, you will notice major pain shifts because your body is no longer being numbed by all the stuff that it was being physically fed. All the chemicals, additives, all the different things. And I'm not talking conspiracy, like even this, everything is technically chemicals. Like everything is made up of elements, molecules, and everything has chemical reactions. So I'm not saying chemicals as in like there's like I'm eating like hydrogen peroxide. I'm just saying like food and all of everything is at its molecular basis a form of chemicals. So you just need to understand, or you don't need to, but like just with my rant, it's like just know that like when I say that we're ingesting chemicals, that I just mean it in like a scientific way, that you're literally bringing in things to your body that's going to have a chemical reaction inside your body every time. And yes, when you start making changes to that, your body will start waking up, basically, if what you were eating was stuff that, like chips, for example, stuff with sugar, stuff that tells your body to crave more of it, is purposely shutting off certain nerves or things, not necessarily nerves, but like things within your system that normally tell you that when you're full, that normally tell you, hey, this is kind of like poison, you should stop. Like those parts in your body and in your brain that send those signals to you, a lot of the foods that people eat that are normalized shut those things off. And when that happens, and also turn on the I need this thing, obviously people feel like they're fine. And the reason why when people make the switch all of a sudden and suddenly their body is like, oh my God, what's happening? Which makes you want to, it's withdrawals is what I'm trying to describe. If you try stop eating meat and you try a different diet all of a sudden out of the blue, some people can make that sudden change and that's wonderful. But a lot of people, that's highly unrealistic, because what happens when they try that is their body shuts down in so many ways. Their organs shut down. Their stomach feels so hungry. Their body feels like it's like ill and things like that. Now that makes it more challenging to make such a shift, make such a change, but that should be a clear sign to people that something is clearly wrong with like the foods that are being consumed. I don't know. Like that's just how I see it. Um, I just know that like my body has gotten so much physically better ever since I stopped eating meat, and like yeah, like it's just clear. And anytime I have like dairy or animal products, my skin flares up more. My skin is like looking somewhat better now because I haven't had really like dairy or anything in maybe about a week now, something like that. So there's like just like a clear, obvious difference. And like I'm still having like bread. Gluten and bread can kind of mess me up too physically. It's different for everyone, I suppose. But with balance, yeah. Also, eating the same thing over and over again really messes with me. I've been eating only burritos pretty much for a few months now for our survival here, because we don't really have access to a kitchen here. Not easy access, anyways. So we've mostly been microwaving these vegan burritos. Now, eating them over and over and over, yeah, my stomach's been paying the price. But so this is like this is why I really wanted to record this moment, I think, because I was like, yes, something that isn't a burrito. It's nice. And as you can see, once I started talking, I just don't eat anymore. It just happens every time I start talking. But yeah, that's my rant on like veganism and why I think it's a good thing and why I think it's important. And for those of you who maybe have been noticing a lot of issues with your health or anything like that, and you're wondering what kind of thing might be related to it, it could be not only the physiological effects of what you're eating, but the ethical, moral effects to what you're eating. If you're someone who cares about all this stuff and you feel kind of like sad or guilty while eating like animal products and it's like on your mind, I'd argue that's a good thing. And I'd also say like, hey, like no shame in eating in survival right now. Like a lot of the times when I would eat something, I would just make the conscientious effort to kind of send out like a little bit of like a prayer or like an intuitive psychic message to what I'm eating, like I'm so sorry type of a thing, and then I'll proceed to eat. And it's really challenging for me. It has been really challenging for me like my whole life. It's kind of always been on my mind. And like I got challenged one time in middle school because I remember like my PE teacher was talking about like fish and how they're all meat, and I like raised my hand and I was like, actually fish is not meat. And she had to like talk to me and explain to me that like those are just different people's views. And I was like, my mom told me this as if it was just universal law, like this was just truth. I was like so in shock. I was like, it like made me, I like really then battled with myself for a while. Is fish meat, is it not meat? My mom told me this thing, but my teacher told me another. What do I believe? Obviously I ended up believing the PE teacher because she didn't force a belief on me. She was like, everyone's got their own different beliefs. Like some people believe like in this and that, and then like that's when I was taught what pescatarian meant, and that's why people like where people draw a line and things like that. So thank you. Shout out to my PE teacher who ended up being kind of really harsh to a friend of mine in high school later on, which made me feel differently. But from my own personal experience, I really needed that experience. Very random experience that happened one time in middle school. But yeah, very grateful for that moment. And just like, I don't know. I also had a friend in high school who's like vegetarian or like vegan. She was really, really cool, or is really cool. And like, I always thought that was like awesome. And I was just like, that's so cool. And I was just like, I can't do that though. Because I was like, she probably grew up on that and that's wonderful, but I didn't. So I was like, I cannot do it. But like, I would ask for some of her food and I'm like, this is great. It wasn't like all this like kind of revolutionary stuff going on now. It was like hummus, pita bread, carrots, things like that. But it was still good. And like, yeah. So yeah. Mm. Mm. If any of you are wondering like how long it took me to fully transition over to like not eating meat anymore, honestly, even when I fully transitioned over, there were still many moments that I almost ate meat or like would have. I think there was one time in between that I did because it was like my family brought home food for like whatever holiday it was, and it was all that there was, and I was hungry, and I was like, okay, and I had some of the things. I was just like, you people are terrible. Like my parents, like they know that all of their children are basically vegan or vegetarian, and they still showed up at our home. They still came home with all of these meat dishes with like one vegetarian dish or something. And like when you go to a place that's all like meat dishes and then they make vegetarian dishes, yeah, it's good, but it's like they don't specialize in understanding. Like it was like just a plate of vegetables, for example, with like delicious sauce and seasoning, I guess. But it's like, yeah, like these restaurants clearly don't understand, and it's like their one and only item. So then it just feels like it's not really a meal compared to all the other meals that you'll order from there. So it's just like, why even pick these places for your children for a holiday sort of celebration? So that was the one time that I did eat meat during my like time that I was like officially kind of transitioned over. Yeah, there's been a few moments where it's like presented in front of me and I'm just so hungry. And then like by the end of it, I'm just like, I really can't. Like I'm just at a point where like I really can't anymore. I can eat vegetarian stuff still, but there might be a point where I just can't do that anymore either. And honestly, kind of looking forward to that because like I've just noticed a lot of like Instagrammers and stuff and my own self and loved ones that people who transition over that our health boosts like way up. It's not like perfect. Um, it's like we're clearly recovering. I was on a meat-based diet for 2 decades. It could take 2 decades to fully recover. It could be lifelong, you know? But I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going because I care about my health. I care about the animals. I care about this planet. Yeah, and that's what I want to do. And I'm just not remembering. I have plans today. I'm like, wait, I have to go soon. So yeah, I hope if any of you do eat meat out there, like I hope you don't feel targeted or like attacked or anything like that. That's not my intention. This is just kind of like how I feel. So good. I had napkins in here. Where'd they go? Reveal thyself. Hi, Mommy. What? Hmm. So strange. I had them. So yeah, I don't know where the paper towels went, but I found a towel itself, and I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, that was me eating a sandwich. Eating a vegan chicken sandwich. While eventually ranting about it. That's the title of this video. So if any of you enjoyed this video, I guess let me know. I would love to hear that. And if you can relate to these thoughts and feelings, or if you're on board with this, like if you're kind of in the same boat as me or whatever, or if you got your own perspective or experience, like so long as it's positive or like not an attack on me or something, or on vegan people, then cool. By the way, the reason why I stress that like I really don't have any hate towards anyone because there's this like whole weird like war of like vegans versus meat eaters on the internet that I've seen, and I guess like technically that would mean in person too. Like there'd be people like coming at indigenous people calling them like monsters because they still eat meat. And I'm like, yo, you do realize this is their culture and that is how they've survived for centuries. And that so much was taken away from them over the last, like, over those centuries, over the last few, and even in the last, like, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Like, it's, like, been ongoing. Like, this place's colonizers have not stopped trying to eradicate indigenous people. It's very obvious. It's like very, very clear, but it's censored, and everyone living in places like, what are you talking about? I don't see any people being attacked and murdered. It's like, that's because they've been displaced. All those places that were like either concentration camps or reservations for indigenous people, those places still exist. They're just now in modern day, and like, we don't go to those places because they were shipped off into the middle of nowhere. So like, yeah, people really don't know. But anyways, I've seen like TikTokers and Instagrammers that are like vegan, like, attack indigenous people about the fact that they're not vegan. And I'm just like, what is your problem? And like a bunch of people who are vegan, true vegans, like, yeah, and like being so hateful. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, what? So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm like, hey, just letting you all know, like, I completely get it. Like, I'm not against anyone for eating foods that they're eating. But yeah, that's part of where that comes from, because I've seen some real hate on both sides of this story. It's not like if you are vegan and or vegetarian or plant-based that now you're like a good person or something. I think like it's a sign of that, but like, I think being a good person is like a whole embodiment sort of a thing. Like, I've seen people who are like vegan and vegetarian and plant-based that, in my own standards, that they're not being very good people from the way they treat others, you know? So, yeah, very, very weird that it's like controversial and difficult to explain to people or to express that, like, hey, like, animals deserve to live too. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, I don't know. Like, animals are our family. Everything on Earth, we're all related. To me, it just makes sense. And with seeing how family is able to hurt each other so much, like my biological family, how they can really raise you not from a place of love, but a place of like real selfishness and hatred and spite and tradition, because they were told to have a family for financial benefits. Like, it's disgusting, honestly. And there's so many that it's all about business. The reason why people have a family, it's for business reasons. Like, what? So the way that family can treat each other, like, it makes sense to me in that regard, how people can treat animals this way, extensions of their family. So I think it's important that we remain conscious of all of this and kind of see the situation for what it is. Not as a, oh, everyone's got their own perspective. Oh, you could look at it like that, but it's also like, no, it's not like, there's different ways we can look at this. It's like, not really. From someone who can look at something from infinite angles, there are certain things that there's not really much other way to look at it. Like, if I push someone in the ground and they're like, why'd you push me in the ground? I'm like, oh, that's one way you can look at it. But wasn't that like gravity doing its thing, Like, they'd be like, no, you just pushed me to the ground. I'm like, oh, you and your beliefs, you and your opinions. It's like, like, there's certain things where I'm like, oh, come on. Like, that's not really how it goes, but okay. And that's because people like to choose logic that serves them, which is not logical. That's clear bias. So many people will choose logic that whenever it serves their own ego, their own beliefs, including saying, oh, well, everyone's got their own beliefs. That serves their belief because that tells them that they cannot be wrong at all now by saying that everyone's got their own opinions and beliefs. The self-serving belief again, a self-serving quote-unquote logic. It's like a way to convince themselves that it's a truth. Very, very interesting. And I've stopped talking about like just diet, like food at this point. I'm like just thinking like so many different things in life with people. But yeah. All right, I should really get going. I love you all so much. And if any of you listen to this whole rant, hey, congratulations. Thank you for watching and listening to me. And yeah, I've got some work to do. Specifically, I've got a personal reading that I really want to get done, that I need to get done, but trying to find the right energy for it. That food really helped me a lot. Now I need to drink water, something tasty as well, juice or something. I don't know. But yeah, okay. Bye.